Boy, was I ever wrong about everything. Hello, carnivores and carnivore curious. Thank you for joining me. My name is Cassandra, and this is my Apex Odyssey. I'm going to take a few minutes to explain how my visit to the hospital went. I got this new mic. Maybe it'll help. It seems to work pretty good in testing. But what is it with this green light? Does everybody want to be looking at a green light? I mean, I had to pin it on backwards so that the light wasn't shining into the camera. It just looked weird. Anyway, hospital. As I've talked about before, I've been having some low oxygen saturation at night. But, and this has been going on for, I don't know, a month or two, I guess. But anyway, the issue was that I had started also doing this when I was awake. So I'm not entirely sure it's 100% related to my CPAP machine because that wouldn't be doing anything while I was awake. For some reason, I'm just having episodes of being short of breath. And, it's still under investigation, the whole situation. But on Thursday morning at 1 o'clock, I ended up going to the emergency room because my oxygen saturation was low. And I was wearing my little pulse oximeter. And first thing I did when I went in there, I had my son drive me. She's like, "What can I do for you?" I'm like, "My oxygen saturation is low." And I waved my finger at her that had the pulse oximeter on it. I don't think she looked at it, but she did give me a stack of documents to fill out. And I went and sat down. And, within like 2 or 3 minutes, they called me to the back, which is comforting that they take something like low oxygen saturation pretty seriously. But I didn't get to fill out my forms. I was like, I finished filling out my name and maybe the date, just a very few things. And it looked terrible because I was writing like this because I have my pulse oximeter on, and I was recording my pulse oximeter on my phone. So I didn't want to take it off because if I do take it off, it makes this alarm like, I didn't want to have all that happen in the hospital. So anyway, after like just a very few minutes after I sat down, they called me to the back. And, I had a couple of people ask me, "Well, what's the matter? What's the matter?" Every time, I encounter somebody, "What brings you in?" I guess is what they were trying to determine. I'm like waving my little finger. My oxygen's low. I can't breathe. I'm short of breath. And so they took me into a room and started, sat me up in a bed and were getting my medical history and wanted to ask what's been going on and all of this stuff. And another doctor came in and asking the same question. It was something like, "What bring you in?" And I said, "I've been short of breath. I've been monitoring my oxygen level, and I feel like I can't get any air." And he's like, "Well, is it low?" And I said, "Well, this says it's 75 right now." And he kind of rolled his eyes. I don't think he believed me. They hooked me up to their monitor, and I didn't even see this. I didn't hear about this until the nurses started telling me about it, several hours later. That it was 60. My oxygen saturation was 60. And everybody started to freak out. I mean, I wasn't really aware of that, except that they were just doing it. They got the IV line in. They brought in, I probably saw 4 doctors in the span of 10 minutes. They were taking it very seriously, but I didn't realize. I thought it was 75, and I walked in there. I know that oxygen saturation of 75 is dangerously low and needs to be seen about, but it doesn't seem like that big a deal because, I was having trouble feeling like I was, getting oxygen, but I didn't, it didn't seem that serious because I was able to get up and walk back there. After they saw that my oxygen saturation was 60, they would not even let me go to the bathroom. They hooked me up they put oxygen in my nose and didn't want me to go anywhere that I could not take that oxygen with me. And I'm thinking, I've been like this for hours. Just suddenly, you're going to act like I can't go to the bathroom for 3 minutes. I've been living like this for weeks. And I mean, they tried everything initially just to get my oxygen saturation up. They were throwing everything at it. And there was some urgency. The first thing they did was a breathing treatment, and it didn't make any difference. And I know, they didn't determine that I had anything that would need a breathing treatment because no more of them were prescribed. But, initially they were just trying to solve for a multitude of problems, whatever it might be. What is the next thing they did? Because they could, whenever I was breathing in and out, they could hear the crackling sound in my lungs, so they knew there was fluid in there. So they started giving me antibiotics, IV antibiotics, something that I would not take except for life-saving circumstances. And because of the fluid in my lungs, that one of the first things that popped up was pneumonia. So they wanted to get me started, whatever, if that was the case. Like I said, they were just solving for a bunch of potential problems at one time. And, they finally told me a little while later that they were going to keep me overnight. I'm like, are you sure? Can't you just give me some oxygen and send me home? And he said no. So I was admitted. They did, I'm trying to think of what all tests they did. They did a CT scan, which I actually had ordered previously because one Friday night, a couple of Friday nights ago, I had some of that shortness of breath, and I did not want to go to the emergency room. Because, I was up walking around and I was managing it. But I did go to urgent care the next day. And the doctor that I saw wanted me to, he did this dimer test and it was high. And he's like, you need to go to the emergency room right now in case, so they can do a chest CT and see if you have any blood clots, or they might do an ultrasound, or, he's like, you just go. But I did not, because I was not symptomatic at the time, and I've been fooled by this too many times. If you're not symptomatic, they're not going to do anything, period. This has happened to me so many times. I just can't. I'm like, all right, well, I'll hold on to all this paperwork. And that's what I decided. The next time this happens and I am symptomatic, I will go to the emergency room, which is what I did. So they did the CAT scan of my whole chest. They got from like here to my abdomen, and there were no blood clots. So thank goodness. And that's what I just felt justified in not going. That, after I left the urgent care a couple of weeks ago, because they would have done that procedure, not found any blood clots. And by that time, my oxygen saturation was normal, so they wouldn't have seen any low oxygen. They would just think I'm over-exaggerating and ignore me. This has been going on for decades. I don't just jump up and go to the emergency room when I'm told to, because they generally don't do crap to fix anything. But in this case, I will say this is the first time that I have ever been hospitalized for an illness. I've had babies in the hospital and had a couple of elective procedures. And I've been to the emergency room before, but never admitted. But this is the first time that I have ever been sick enough to have to stay at the hospital. Well, that they knew about. And it sucked. It was very miserable. And I mean, I still think I needed to go because of my oxygen saturation, but I just dealing with those people. The nurses, as usual, were very nice. I think nurses run the entire world. But, and even other people on my care team, the people who came in to check my vitals every few hours, the people who brought food, who came to clean up stuff, everybody was extremely nice. Doctors, and my experience, and it was not, they did not do anything to remedy that, my opinion, but they're just assholes. Smug, don't think that you can tell them anything, and just make the whole healthcare system worse. Okay, so by the time I got there, I had not slept in about 20 hours. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, so I had been up since 5 o'clock Wednesday morning. That's just, about 5:46. That's what time I woke up. And, went through Wednesday, went to work on Wednesday, worked all day, and then couldn't get to sleep on Wednesday night. And it was Thursday morning at around 1-ish, whenever I got to the hospital. So I'm already almost awake for 24 hours. And I was not able to go to sleep for a long time. I was up for 40-something hours that I wasn't able to go to sleep because, there are a bunch of reasons. But I couldn't get comfortable. They had, the bed, it was actually a nice bed. It had this automatically adjusting air mattress meant to keep you from developing skin sores and things. But it was not comfortable. Just getting in and out of it was really difficult. They had me on this IV drip with salinated water, sodium something solution. And that, I guess, kept me having to go pee constantly. Every 20 or 30 minutes, I would have to get up and go to the bathroom. So I could not go for that reason. I couldn't go to sleep. Every time I drift off, I got to go pee. And I was peeing a lot. They captured it in a bucket to test my output or to monitor it. And it was like 3 or 4 times a day. They had to dump out the bucket because it was full. And they just wrote it down on the wall. And so I eventually told a nurse, after being awake like 36 hours, I'm really tired and I can't go to sleep because because I guess this drip is making me have to pee a lot. Something is, and I can't sleep at all. And it's extremely aggravating whenever you're hooked up to stuff and then you have to go to the bathroom. Because I had to take off the oxygen thing, move the IV pole around and sit it right beside the bathroom door so that I could go in and have the little IV drip line, through the door. I couldn't close the door all the way. And then whenever I would finish, I'd have to get up and go back and put my oxygen thing back on. It was just made going to the bathroom every 30 minutes a huge ordeal. So that kept me up. And then the next thing that kept me up was whenever I would doze off, I didn't have my CPAP machine. Whenever I would doze off, they would not, since I didn't have my CPAP machine on, I would start gasping for air. and that would wake me up. So couldn't go to sleep for that reason. And they were supposed to order me I actually had my son bring my CPAP machine, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work with the oxygen deal. It wouldn't fit in there. And they had ordered me a respiratory therapist or something like that to come and hook me up to one of their hospital CPAP machines because of the oxygen situation. And so they were not going to do that until Thursday night when it was time for me to go to bed. So I'm like, okay, send somebody in here at 9 o'clock tonight and they can get me hooked up to the CPAP machine so I can get some sleep. So it's already, past 24 hours plus, so 36 hours is a day and a half. I don't know. It's a long time. It's from 5 o'clock Wednesday morning till 9 o'clock Thursday night. And I'm waiting there for them to get it. And I asked like 4 different times because the clock's ticking. It's getting 10 o'clock. And I asked the different people who came in, are they going to bring me my CPAP machine? And they kept telling me, oh, let me tell her again. So she comes up the first time. She's making her rounds. She never showed up. And let me go get her. She never showed up. Finally, at midnight, I told my nurse again, I'm still waiting on my CPAP machine. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me go get her. I guess there's been a miscommunication. I'm sleepy. I'm really, really sleepy. And, it's hard after having been awake that long. It's very difficult to be in good spirits and in a good mood. And it was like torture. I'm sure that is a valid form of torture where you let people almost go to sleep and then you wake them up. I think I've read about that before. It's really awful. You can make people's minds snap that way. But eventually around midnight she came and she said, is there some reason you don't want to use your own CPAP machine? I'm like, I can't get oxygen in it. So she's like, oh, I can fix that. She took all of her stuff away and brought this little connector that connected, it was like a T connector to hook my CPAP hose up to the oxygen. So finally got that done. And I had them stop the IV drip because, I was going to pee plenty. Like my urine output has been fine, but this is keeping me awake. So they disconnected that. She's like, okay, you don't have to take anything you don't want. And so I'm like, thank you. And finally at midnight on Friday morning, I got to sleep for about 5 hours. And, and then they came. It was time for them to come start checking stuff again. It was not great sleep, but it was thankfully sleep. And then, another thing that they were trying to do was give me steroids, and I refused those 2 different times. Whenever they first came to me, she's like, this is prednisone. I'm like, I don't want that. Every time I take it, I gain 20 pounds. It makes my blood sugar go up, basically just ruins my life. And she's like, okay, nope, you don't have to take it. And then the next day, they brought it to me again, and I ended up telling the lady the same thing. This time she had like a cup of pills, and there were 2 of them in there. I asked her, what are these? One of them was potassium, because my potassium had been low, probably because of doing all the peeing. There was a couple of different antibiotics, and blood pressure pill, fluid pill, and then those steroid pills. And I'm like, I don't want to take these. So I took them out, and she took them and threw them in the trash. And speaking of potassium, another thing that I experienced was starting to have muscle cramps. And I think it was because I was losing a lot of electrolytes from all the urinating. And they had taken me off salt. Now, we have talked about this before, that I do eat a lot of salt, but whenever I stop, I have terrible muscle cramps. So I think removing salt from my food was messing me up anyway as far as getting electrolytes. But I had my son bring me some little salt packets. I mean, they're crappy salt packets, but at least it was sodium. And let's talk about the food. I did not eat most of it. I didn't eat anything that I thought was going to be off plan. And whenever they would come in, like, you didn't feel like eating, like, I don't eat that. It's not good for my blood sugar. And they wouldn't say anything. They would just take it away and probably write something on the wall about my intake. But the first morning that I got there, so I was there for breakfast on Thursday morning, and there was eggs in each plate, I think, at breakfast, but I couldn't tell what they were. They didn't taste exactly like real eggs, so I wasn't trusting it. There was also like a muffin and some oatmeal and stuff. Well, the first day, there was a little sausage patty in there about this big, and I tasted it. It didn't taste sweet, so I just ate it because I was hungry. And then at lunch that day, there was corn and salad, and there was a pork chop that looked like it was baked. It had been dusted with some seasonings, which I, will allow myself to have seasonings. And so I ate that. But at dinner, they had something else. Oh, they had chicken, but it had this really thick sauce on it. And I tasted the sauce, and it tasted sweet. So I wiped it off my tongue with a paper towel. And then I didn't eat the chicken. I had my son go to, he wanted something. He wanted some fast food, and he was just visiting me. So I had him bring me some plain chicken wings. And that's what I had for dinner. And I was like adding a bunch of salt because, trying to get rid of the muscle cramps because they were like bad. I've often had Charlie horses and things. Whenever you move your muscle in your leg the wrong way too much, it would start hurting. But I would just be laying there and start having muscle cramps, and they hurt really bad. So I was not about to be dealing with that. And then the next day for breakfast, there was just, those weird eggs and some oatmeal and toast with syrup and, different kind of stuff you could dress everything up with. But I didn't eat any of that. And then at lunch, they had told me they were going to discharge me at 11 o'clock anyway. So I didn't worry about eating lunch. It was breaded fish. And, if it had just been baked fish, I probably would have ate it because I was hungry. But I didn't eat the breaded fish. And they had brought me some medicine around that point, and I took it. And it was just a bunch of different things. I had them take the prednisone out of it, but about 30 minutes after that, I started throwing up. So they ended up not discharging me right then. The doctor called, and he's like, they said you were having some nausea. Do you want to stay another day? I'm like, I definitely do not. I just want to know if one of these medicines causing me to throw up. You might want to try something else. And he's like, well, any one of them could be causing some nausea. It's really hard to say. I'm like, okay, just when I get home, I will take one at a time. And if I find some of them don't agree with me, I'll talk to the doctor about getting something else. And he said that was fine. I'll go ahead and write your discharge order. But it was like 3 hours later. Still didn't have a discharge order. My son had gotten there at 11 o'clock. Like they had said, I was going to be going home. And we were there until well into the afternoon. And let's see. So the doctor came in before he was going to discharge me, and he asked me how I was feeling and asked me about symptoms. And I said, I have a really bad headache, and I often get a bad headache. I often wake up with a bad headache. And, I wonder if that might be related to any of this. And he said, well, you know what the main cause of headaches is? And I didn't respond because I don't give a crap. He said dehydration. And then he didn't say anything else about it. So rather than, doing anything helpful, taken me seriously at all, or doing something to help me with the headache or find out what was causing it. He just made a smart ass comment that I didn't want his IV drug all the time. And that's just the kind of crap that I'm so used to listening to from doctors, and it infuriates me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, they really didn't give me an answer about what was causing the shortness of breath. If I have it again, I'm supposed to go back. They did a echo on my heart, said I have slightly reduced. It's supposed to push your blood back out, not getting quite as much of a slightly reduced ejection on my heart. They did see some ground glass effusions on my lungs. They didn't say anything about why it might be like that. Nobody mentioned it. I think they look at a fat person and think automatically you're having a heart attack, which I wasn't. I mean, but they just decide that it's heart related and start looking for things to support that, and they find something that might, be conceivably linked to heart condition, and they tell you that's what it is. I've since learned from a nurse that those ground glass effusions on your lungs can be related to having COVID. And I had COVID 5 times. That was one of the things that I was curious about was getting through COVID vaccinations and having COVID 5 times. So can that have a long-term effect on your lungs? But, nobody was interested in hearing about that. He did recommend a sleep study because I have a lot of this stuff still going on while I'm asleep, and they need to investigate it. They want to know exactly what's going on while I'm asleep. I can see that my oxygen saturation is going down while I'm sleeping, but it doesn't tell me anything about why. So we're definitely doing that. And and that is Friday night. So maybe sometime next week I'll have a few more clues about what might be going on. I'm aggravated because, this is just how it always happens with me, and why I don't like going to the doctor. It's not because I'm scared of them. It's because they always charge me a bunch of money, and in this case, probably tens of thousands of dollars, and don't tell me anything that's helpful. I did get a blood pressure medication. I know that somebody was worried about that. Somebody said blood pressure is a silent killer and I need to get that under control. I started taking a blood pressure medicine that, whenever they gave it to me at the hospital, like 10 minutes later, my blood pressure was normal. Sort of 119/73. So, that works. They prescribed me 3 more drugs. One of them was the diuretic, but I didn't take that. I don't think I need it. I didn't get the prescription filled, and the other 2 were antibiotics, which they had begun giving you at the hospital, but they did not find any bacterial infections. And I don't believe in taking antibiotics when you don't have a bacterial infection. Now, I know that it's dangerous to start antibiotics and not finish them because you can create superbugs that way, but there was no bugs. There was no bugs to get super by me just not taking this. If they had done their cultures and found that I had some bacterial infections, I would have taken it. They say you only need to take it if it's going to save your life. And apparently something's trying to kill me in my sleep, but it's not bacteria. And that's a long, long thing. I got home and I slept as much as possible. I think that the blood pressure medicine might be helping with me having to get up and pee so much, but it's hard to know. I've been so exhausted that I don't know. We'll see over the next couple of nights if I sleep better because of that. And aside from going to get my sleep study this weekend, we just monitor it and see what's going on, see if we can find some more answers. I think the sleep study place has pulmonologists, and that would probably be my next interesting thing to see what's going on with my lungs. So, I mean, the thing continues, the mystery continues, and I guess February is the second best month to meet your out-of-pocket maximum on your health insurance. So the rest of this, that was something else I thought was stupid. Was somebody from the business office came in on Thursday. She's like, "Okay, you got this much left in your deductible. Can you pay all of that right now?" No. I gave him a few $100, and she's like, "Stop at the business office on your way out so you can set up a payment plan. I want to see my itemized bill and see what the insurance is going to cover and what the whole bill is going to be before I do that." But anyway, on the way out, my nurse was in there typing all of my stuff in and telling me what to do. And I told my son, disconnecting me from the stuff. And I told my son, "Well, I think we need to stop at the business office on the way out." And the nurse said, "You have to do that on my account." So I didn't. I just left. I am sure they will be calling me and telling me how much money I owe them. So I'm not that worried about it. They'll get it. And I'm still really exhausted, just tired and kind of weak from being sleep deprived and laying in a bed for 2 days. I didn't get to do my walking. I didn't get to do my dumbbells. And I'm just thankful to be home. I know it was a life-saving measure, as low as my oxygen saturation was, but it was necessary. I needed to go and get that taken care of. But golly, doctors and hospitals, they just piss me off. They are almost useless. Still don't know what the problem is. And I'm going to go rest. Hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day and rest of your weekend and a great week coming up. And I will definitely see you in the next one. Thank you.